All right, guys. Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis. And it's good that you're here. It's good to be seen. And thank you so much for joining us here. We're all over the place now. We're on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on, I just can't count all the places we're at. We're growing and we're expanding, and we're so glad that you're with us today. And we have a fantastic show. We're going to be talking with somebody who I've worked with for a long time. Off and on over the years, and she's amazing. In fact, her pedigree or her resume is so impressive that they've been using her on national TV shows, working with the Osbournes, of all people, Ozzy and the family, and we're glad to have her. Sarah Lemos.
Hey, Clyde, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited for your career and your life.
Thank you.
I really am. I mean, I remember when I first met you, and you were on the show, and you were our resident psychic, and now you're like off to bigger and better things. What's up with the Osbournes? I mean, you told me, and I'm like going, are you kidding me? Can I like touch you? You hang out with rock royalty. So what's up with that?
It was really exciting. I met Jack Osbourne on Portals to Hell. I did the Portland tunnels last year with them. And so they called me up and said, hey, Sarah, can you meet us in the tunnels? I said, absolutely. And then our friendship just grew. And he's asked me back several times, and then on to the Osbournes Want to Believe, and then I actually was able to be a part of the Halloween special. So it was really fun. I've got to hang out with them a lot. Yeah.
Wow. So how is Ozzy? I mean, is he everything that you thought he'd be?
You know, that's really funny because at first I was like, they were my show. Growing up, like I watched the Osbournes all the time and was in love with them and didn't miss the show. Loved him. It was really interesting. You knock on the door and Sharon Osbourne answers, and you really go, this is happening like right now. And then we went in and I got to meet Ozzy, who is just incredible. His energy is unreal. He definitely feels he's just a special man. He's a very special man. Does what he wants when he wants. That is the reality. And I got to see a little bit of that, which was kind of cool. But to be honest with you, Clyde, I'm sitting there in their office and I'm talking to them, and all of a sudden I start looking at the walls, and it's just lined with Emmys and all these different. You just take a minute to just kind of be in their presence. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be like, sort of I guess you could say you feel like you're in another world because you're with a man who, of course, his career has spanned so many years with Black Sabbath and other projects he's been involved with. And, I'm a big fan of Sabbath. I'm a big fan of Ozzy. It's amazing how through all of his, I guess you call it tumults in his life, he's managed to survive as long as he has. And, of course, he's got stories from the road that are really kind of bizarre. And, of course, if you read The Dirt, Motley Crue, when they talk about touring with him and how crazy he was. But I'm sure that there's a presence and an aura or something about him. What is it that you felt from him when you met him? I mean, I know you feel, you have these sense of feelings for people and their presence and what they are. What did you get from Ozzy?
Ozzy he's very spirited. So even though he was calm, when he's looking at you, he's communicating with you, his energy is swarming. It's just moving. It's everywhere. It was just incredible. He's just an amazing man. And when he's ready to talk to you, he makes it dang clear. It's all eye contact. He just pulls you in. And pretty soon, it's just you and Ozzy in the entire room.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't realize just how spiritual Ozzy is. I mean, of course, back in the day with Black Sabbath, they were turning on the darkness and all that, but it was more of a medieval type of reflection of religion and spirituality, and even allowing for the darkness to creep in, because you can't have light without the darkness. And so I remember back when I was warned that Black Sabbath was a scary devil band, but the more I realized that they weren't, that they were more of a religious band. And I know that people would find it very odd to say that Ozzy Osbourne is a devout Christian.
He's just incredible. I mean, sitting in his presence, and he's open. That's one really cool thing, and I think that's why I was so drawn to the Osbournes, is they're open to the idea that there's more than what's just in front of them. It's the idea that, but they all tell you straight up, they don't believe. They'll tell you straight up, they think that's just.
So are they skeptical, or are they? Just...
Oh yeah, so they're skeptical, very healthy so. Like, Jack is like, you can get Jack to, he'll ask questions and you're like, okay, and he'll listen. Kelly is very, she, being on set with her, it was incredible because she's definitely an empath. So her and I clicked really, really quickly. And then with Ozzy, it was very clear, even with his energy, but he's very much like, prove it.
Did you meet their other daughter?
I did not. She was not there.
Okay, because I know that she's the one that kind of hangs behind and really doesn't, and she doesn't like the spotlight.
She doesn't like to be seen, and she likes to play piano. She has her own little life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely an interesting family for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, you were involved with investigations and other things. I mean, you've done investigations with us that have just been amazing. I remember, we can go back to when we were investigating Maury Island.
Let's do it.
I mean, that's the thing that I think put you on the map with me.
I agree.
In the radar. And the reason why was because it was a miserable investigation. Not only was the rain falling down, I managed to, twist my ankle.
I know.
I almost fell into the Puget Sound. But the most amazing thing is we were in the rain. It was miserable. And we went to the area where the crash site was of the B-28 or the B-25 or whatever it was. And you actually drew a map out of memory for us to find it. And sure enough, we showed up because of what we saw. Everything was there. Every marker, everything was there. You had never been there before. And I was like shocked. In fact, the guy that was our guide was saying, where did you get this map? And I said, well, Sarah Lemos drew it. And she says, well, she's got everything to the detail. So we went right to the site based on your vision of what it was. What were you getting? What vibe were you getting when we were out looking for that crash?
It was crazy because we had met several weeks prior and I did some readings on air and we were talking about heading out to do this investigation. I was stoked. But in the middle, when you were talking, I was told by my guides, grab a piece of paper, I'm going to show you something. Mm-hmm. I literally drew that in studio.
Right.
And so when we got out there, it was insane because I kept saying, we got to go a little further. It doesn't feel right. There's got to be another road. Well, we were like, there's no road. And we came around that corner and there it was.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was just incredible. That site alone, though, it does have a lot of fear. There's a lot of angst in that area, of course.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, we were investigating the Maury Island affair, which, of course, has been kind of a controversial UFO story that happened prior to Roswell, where there were 6 UFOs that were seen over the Puget Sound. There were 2 gentlemen who were in a boat that said that a piece of the UFO crashed on their boat, killed their dog, harmed their boy, and we wanted to go back and do an investigation. And one of the things that is interesting is that when J. Edgar Hoover heard about the situation, they sent out the MIBs, they sent out a bunch of people, but there were 2 soldiers that flew out in a plane, and they got the UFO fragments. They put them in a box and flew back. The plane crashed somewhere near Kelso, and it crashed in an area. It was a barren area out in the middle of nowhere, and we were trying to find that place because we had no idea where to look, and I'm sure if we would have asked around, people would have known, or maybe not. But Sarah came up with a map that just came to her about where we needed to go, and we went there, and we were there to just basically use the map and figure out where that plane went down, and we were there. Yeah. And you had given us a map. It was detailed. It was drawn out. It was done in a studio. It was done in my studio during the show. We were talking about the going out there, and in fact, it impressed 2 of the other investigators, saying, "Wow, I mean, she knew exactly where to go. She guided us there." This is amazing. And then not only that, but after we did that investigation into the crash site, we ended up at the museum in Kelso, and and I don't know how it came up in the conversation, but we were talking with the people who ran the museum, and we said, yeah, we were doing an investigation to Maury Island, we were doing an investigation into the crash site, and we were there earlier because of what you had guided us to. And they said, wait a minute. And then they went downstairs, and the guy had gloves on, and he brought a piece of that aircraft, and he sat it down in front of you, and they allowed you to touch it. I thought that was amazing because they don't let anybody touch that stuff, but they allowed you to touch it, and you got your impression. It's kind of like psychometry, where you got your impressions off that.
And it was really scary because honestly, this is the first time I had ever worked with UFOs. I had ever worked with the idea of aliens. My job is to talk to the dead. That's what I do. So this was really interesting. I remember looking at you going, Clyde, I don't want to tell you what I see. And you're like, Sarah, just say it. And I was like, Clyde, I don't want to. And you said, now. And I would never have said, if you would have looked at me and said, now, Sarah. And it was finding this liquid forming, metal moving, hearing the plane go down, being able to say, it was the right engine. Clyde, something's wrong with the right engine. They're hit on the right. We're going down. And it was seeing all that for the very first time. It was very intense. So I learned a lot during that investigation.
Well, and I learned a lot too because it was funny, so the engine went out and they heard a big bomb and a crash and a crack. I remember that. And I was reading somewhere after the fact that someone had said that maybe the plane was sabotaged and it was done on purpose. And but it was like you said that the pilots were laughing or they were having a discussion. They had a big laugh and all of a sudden the laughing stopped. I remember this well. The laughing stopped. They heard a crack and a pop and then an explosion. And then that was it. The plane went down. Whatever it was, that metal that you said was in the box, and they said it was some sort of metal slag and it wasn't described as anything but slag. They didn't call it anything else. And then you described it being like, it sounded like mercury you were describing, or something similar to mercury.
Exactly.
And so it was an amazing moment because what it did is it solidified my thoughts that one of the things about the Maury Island investigation is that I think that it was the first time really that we heard about the Northwest connection to the UFO craze of the 1940s. And I think that what happened is it certainly was something that they didn't want to get out. And that's why the Men in Black showed up and said to the guy, you don't talk about this or your family is going to be killed. So they went back and they decided to retract their story, say that they lied and it was all a farce and it didn't happen. But you go to Kelso and you go to Tacoma, you go to all these areas, they have records. You can go in the records and find the truth. You can say, oh, it's all there. The records are there. You go to the museum. They have the crash of the plane. They have the metal there. I don't know if they have any proof of slag or proof of anything like that, but we were able not only to, with you, map out the area, go to the area in miserable rain. I remember it was a horrible rainy day that day. We were just soaking wet.
We were.
And then, of course, going out to Maury Island, and I fell and got hurt. So something certainly was, I mean, I'd love to go back and do this over again, but, I'm getting older and I don't know if I can do it. But I'm just saying that at the time, everything was clicking. Everything was clicking, and I was about to make my arguments. And I did it at one of the UFO festivals. I remember Stanton Friedman, who was a big skeptic, hated the Maury Island story, wished it would go away. And he and his lawyers were there. And his lawyers came up to me and said, Stanton wants to speak with you. And he said, Clyde, he says, you've opened up my mind to revisiting the Maury Island case. And I thought, great. And then all of a sudden, nothing. Mm-hmm. Dead end, nothing. And I haven't explored it since. But it was the most remarkable experience in my career. And it's because of you, Sarah Lemos. It's because I was lost and I was just thinking, where do I begin? And then you had your vision of everything, and I'm like, wow, this is just right here, right in your face. It's an important moment in UFO history. I don't know where else to go with it.
Yeah. It was so much fun. It was such an experience. And then watching you go live that year at the UFO event and having the different people come on and listen to them and be a part of it and finally get to hear if I was right or if I was wrong, which is pretty incredible.
Right. That means 1 minute.
Oh, that's really cool. Point at the ceiling. Makes sense. I'm like, UFO?
Yeah, look up. There's something up there. No, our floor manager just gave us the 1 minute sign.
That's awesome.
So, and there's some, and it's really funny because looking back at, our relationship, a lot of what I say momentous? No, it's milestones or moments where we've had things happen that have been amazing. And something that we want to talk about probably after the break is Dr. Heldor.
Yes, please.
And this is another moment where Sarah has been an intricate part of something that certainly was scary, informative, and I wish I had the notes. I should have brought the notes of what happened. But those of you that don't know, Sarah Lemos has never, ever been a part of a Ouija board session or a seance or anything, and we decided to whip out the Ouija and do a Ouija board session on Ground Zero, and it turned out to be very, very prophetic. So, Sarah Lemos with us, Channel Weird, and we'll be back with more. Don't go away.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcasts, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com. No, we got the best music on Channel Weird, I think.
I agree.
Just love it. Just love it. I can listen to this all day long. In fact, they just ought to play the music. I'll just sit here and just nod to the camera. That's what I'll do. Yeah, of course. Andrew, the man jamming over there. He's our producer. Okay. So another milestone.
Yes.
Our relationship that we've had with the show and with everything else. And of course, one of the biggest moments, and it's weird because we've had Ouija board shows before, but never have we had a character come through that has captured the minds of the listeners, and that is Dr. Heldor, which for me, I mean, there are times I continually get emails about the Dr. Heldor show, about what happened when we were using a board and how this character came through named Dr. Heldor. It's either Hell's Door or Heldor or whatever. And certainly Dr. Heldor had a lot to say about our future, a lot to say about health, a lot to say about the health of President Trump, for one.
Yes.
Saying that he was going to be sick, that he was going to get sick, and he did. He got COVID-19. But then, of course, there was predictions about how Biden would be the new president and that Biden would die in office, and that it would be certainly a shake to the nation. A number of things that Heldor talked about. This was your first experience, you said, with a Ouija board.
It honestly was, Clyde. I would have never done it with anyone but you. Like,
Right.
It was not going to happen.
Right, and I want to make it clear that I don't use Ouija boards. I just don't. I do it. I did it because I was asked to do it, and I'm not afraid of them. I used to be,
Right.
because of all the reputation. You hear, don't mess with a Ouija board. It's the devil's tool. No, if it's used correctly, it's not the devil's
No,
tool.
if you use it correctly, it's just a dowsing tool.
It's a
you're
dowsing.
Just, yeah.
And I mean, it's no different than using a pendulum.
No.
It's no different than using dowsing rods. It's just that you're using something that looks really kind of medieval and weird.
Yes.
And so that's why I always tell people, whenever I hear people, I had a bad experience with a Ouija board, I tell them it's because you didn't know how to use it.
That's correct.
Because most people, they're teenagers and they ask stupid questions. And of course, the board is just going to, it's like I always say, if I die, I want to do Ouija board duty because I want to teach these kids, just don't mess with the
All
effing
the
Ouija board.
lessons.
Yes, exactly. So, if you use it correctly, we had some direct hits, certainly. Tell me about your experience and what is it that you remember about that night and what fulfilled you, what was fulfilling. I think it had a lot to do with the mediumship too. I think that you were certainly in tune, but what did you feel?
It was incredible, just even feeling the board and how it moved and how it would get excited. And I felt like when the doctor came in, it became even more, it started to move. It moved more jerky. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but when he spoke, when he was speaking, it would just like jerk. Like it didn't move softly. It pulled us in the direction of his messages. And he was very clear about like, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going down. There's not going to be water. There's going to be militants in the street. We got so much that evening that within, I think it was 2 days, 2 to 3 days, something like that, half of what we had said occurred. And now looking back, every once in a while, somebody will message me also and say, do you remember when you were on Clyde's show? Well, you guys were right about this, and this. And I just kept getting them.
But it wasn't us. It was Dr. Heldor.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
And that's the thing is that Dr. Heldor, I have never in my career ever had an experience where a character comes through a board that, first of all, has a name that you can recognize. I've never heard of Dr. Heldor, but the idea of Dr. Heldor. And people were sending me messages that there was a Dr. Heldor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there really was a Dr. Heldor who practiced. He died in like the 1920s, and he practiced medicine. But remember, he said, "I am a doctor of the soul. I'm a doctor," and he was a psychiatrist.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, and so he was one of the first psychiatrists, and he practiced, I think, in Chicago or someplace.
Wow.
But he said, I'm a doctor of the soul. I'm a doctor of things that matter. And in coming through and saying that, the mental health of the country is going downhill. There's going to be massive riots in the streets. There's going to be, and this was before Antifa or anything went down. And then saying it's going to happen, be ready for it, and then the president's health is going to go downhill, and we thought maybe he was going to die, but no, and there are a lot, and it gave dates too. It gave dates in November. It said be ready for this in November, be ready for this in December, and then they said they mentioned Joe Biden, and it said something about how Biden would be a president. Basically, what did they say? Something about how his presidency would be in question and that he would be president for just a short amount of time. Now, I don't know. That's relative saying that he would probably die or get sick or not be able to fulfill his duties. Never said anything about Kamala Harris, never said anything about a vice president, but certainly had a lot to say about the future of the country and the future of its health, which was not good.
No, but it's incredible too, because we're getting this information from a spirit on the other side through a Ouija board, and literally in the weeks and months to come, watch it play out. Now, I believe in what I do, but I have to tell you, that was a moment of holy heck, because it just unfolded right in front of us the several months. And like you said, people calling.
You were doing the checklist. They were like sending me information, and they were saying things like, they couldn't think of anybody better to be working with me than Sarah Lemos. And I said, well, obviously going through her, this was amazing because, we've had direct hits before on Ouija board sessions, but never as accurate as it was at that time.
It was incredible.
And it was terrifying. And I've always wanted to go back. And I mean, it's hard to go back and analyze all the information that you get. But people always said, you ought to go back and analyze that show. But it'd be great if I could just sit down and record everything that we did, go back and say, this was a hit, this was a hit, this was a hit, this was a hit. It'd take a lot of work. But just reminiscing about it.
Yes.
And how it was one of those moments, again, on Ground Zero where, we had this information that was coming at us. And, of course, you don't know if this stuff is going to be real or it's going to be, but it was just completely accurate. Just everything, names and dates and everything. And I think people would remember if you just say, remember the Dr. Heldor show, remember Dr. Heldor. And everybody goes, of course we remember Dr. Heldor.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I say, it's a name that in my whole career, I have never, ever had some character from a Ouija board or from a seance or from anything that I've been a part of affect me as much as Dr. Heldor did. So whoever Dr. Heldor was, or whoever he is, or whatever that representation was on a Ouija board, it certainly has been something that has affected, my understanding of the psychic realm.
It was incredible to watch your face too, because I'm your friend. So like we're friends. So we work together, but we can talk about anything. And so commercials come up and things like that, and it was just to watch you experience it with me, because I was nervous and I was trying to play it cool. I'm with the guys, I'm trying to play it cool, but I was like, I'm really nervous. And then to watch you, and then we would look at each other and be like, this is happening. And then when the name hit, you were like, whoa, Sarah, like, did you, one more time? And it was like, Heldor? Heldor? And we kept doing that. Hell's Door. We kept doing that. We kept going. And it was all of a sudden you were like, Dr. Heldor. And it was like, boom.
Yeah. And as soon as we called him Dr. Heldor, everything was just like, yeah, he was, because that's what we thought. We thought Hell's Door, and we didn't know what that was. And we were thinking, ooh, what are we dealing with here?
Right.
And then he says, no, Dr. Heldor.
Yes.
My name is Dr. Heldor.
Yes.
Just a name. I mean, they ought to make a movie.
I agree.
It's like, if I ever wanted to make a movie, it would be like calling Dr. Heldor. It'd be like, I don't know. I guess there's a script that could be had. Anybody out there who wants to write a script about this evil doctor or this strange doctor who can predict the future, it'd be kind of fun to talk about. But yeah, another experience. And see, that's the thing. I think also too, what made it an interesting experience probably is your experience with talking with the dead. Being able to talk with the dead. And I think that maybe that attracted a powerful entity like Dr. Heldor to bring it into the realms of the reality that we're in. And remember, it'd be remembered by a lot of the people who listen to the program that night. Tell me about that. Tell me about that experience where you are in tune with the dead.
So since I was about 5 years old, I've been able to see the dead, but I grew up in the 80s and you weren't allowed to talk to strangers. So my parents told me all the time, don't talk to strangers. So I didn't. I actually didn't know that spirits and people weren't the same. So as I grew up and have been able to channel, been able to channel since I was about 5 years old.
Wow.
So it's in progressive, and I've learned and studied, and now was blessed to be on Ghost of Morgan City, Portals to Hell, the Osbournes Want to Believe. It just keeps continuing. And of course, being on the Clyde Lewis show, first and foremost, is just kind of this movement forward. And I think more and more people are looking for these answers.
Were we your first show?
Yeah.
So we discovered you.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did.
Isn't that amazing?
You did.
I mean, I have to.
No, you're right. No, you totally did.
Everybody that,
yes.
like Anthony Patch,
There you go. See?
Sarah Lemos.
There you go.
All these people that are now famous, and I'm just still squandering in a radio show somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing well.
Yes, you are.
I'm doing well right now.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm just saying that, it's amazing some of the people that I've met in my career. You're one of them, and continuing to, grow like you're growing, and it's so neat to see you when you were with us in the beginning, and now look at you. Look where you're at now. Anyway, Sarah Lemos with us on Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis. We'll be back with more. Don't go away.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. We've been doing some planning here during the break with Sarah Lemos about calling Dr. Heldor. Not on the air today, because we don't have the... But we want to develop a phone, some sort of a phone to the dead. Edison did that.
Yes.
Thomas Edison had a phone to the dead. He wanted to create a telephone. In fact, you can read about it in General Electric. They have an area where Thomas Edison created a telephone that could talk to the dead. And I guess we could probably come up with some technology where we could actually get a real phone or something, and create crosstalk in order to talk to Dr. Heldor.
I think it's a great idea.
So we do a show called Calling Dr. Heldor.
Yes.
That'd be scary.
It would be horrifying. I'm excited
But
now.
to hear his voice, or to hear a voice of Dr. Heldor coming through,
would be amazing.
that'd be ITC.
Yeah.
I mean, not very many people do ITC work. They do EVP work.
Right.
And EVP is interesting, but ITC is different.
It
because
very much is.
ITC is where you're using direct electronics, not, like they do with the radio or do whatever. You're basically using a telephone or a computer. I mean, people don't know that they can get messages on their Skype from the dead. They
All
don't
the
know.
time.
Yeah, they come through. Or I knew before Tracy Twyman passed away that she was getting emails that were from, she didn't know where they were coming from. And I thought that she was hallucinating. But no, I noticed they were from different times, from the future and from the past. They had different dates on them. How do they do that unless they're backdating and trying to harass her? But it was crazy. I mean, and of course, Tracy Twyman was someone who used a Ouija board a lot. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the reasons why we did it, was in honor of her, because she was a Ouija board person. But you don't use those tools, but you sense things. You sense the dead around you. And you're not using for divination. They're speaking to you. I mean, there's a difference between necromancy and using the dead in another way. What are they telling you now? I mean, what are we hearing from the spirit world? Because, I mean, I was reading the other day that not only is there now a new interest by scientists to prove life after death. Robert Bigelow just offered $1 million for anyone who can prove life after death. There was a new TV show on Netflix called Surviving Death.
It was amazing.
And so there's this new, I've never seen so much interest in life after death since the Civil War. I mean, the Civil War was where we started seeing Ouija boards and mediums and all that. Now we're back to that again because of COVID. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if their loved ones are okay or if something else is going on. What is it that you are sensing now? What is coming through to Sarah Lemos about what is going on and what our future is?
So it's been really interesting. There was a time right after we did the talk that it went quiet, and that made me very nervous. Quiet. I don't like dead air, and so it made me very, very nervous. Lately, it's been a lot of talk about the COVID shots. I've been told to watch the COVID shots. I've been told to watch for the third company that's going to bring out the next phase. How it's going to change, how COVID itself is going to change, how it's going to become, it's going to be around for a very long time. It's going to look different, and it's going to have, what they're showing me is because of the COVID vaccines and such, that that basically we're changing our biostructure because of this. And so that we're going to see children a bit different in the future.
So we're going to be seeing what, a mutation of children?
So I'm going to suggest that we're going to see children that are born. There's already so much fear, and we're going to be moving from the COVID. We're moving back into living again, right? Everybody's like, I just want to get back to normal. I just want to get back to normal. I think what we're going to see is the children that we already have are now terrified. They're terrified to go outside. They're terrified to go outside and play. That's shifting us as a whole. And I do believe that as children are born and as we move forward, there's going to be a lot more fear-based behavior.
It seems as so this is the case. I was just doing a show last night about the life expectancy. We've lost a year or two in our life expectancy since COVID-19. Not that COVID-19 has contributed to it, but just the idea of despair, overdoses, being locked down. Lockdowns aren't working, and they continue to push the idea. And a lot of these sheep that irritate the hell out of me are saying, no, it's not working, and it hasn't worked, and they know that it's not working, and they are contributing to this idea of what I see as a culling process. They just appointed Eric Lander as the chief of our health, who is part of the Genome Project. And Eric Lander also was sponsored by none other than Jeffrey Epstein, who, of course, himself saw himself as eugenicist. And so I worry about eugenics. I worry about population reduction. I worry about breeding stock. I worry about, like you say, the children of our future are going to be different, or the lack of children in our future because of maybe side effects that would create sterilization. But at the moment, it doesn't matter, because what we're doing is we're giving it to the older people, and older people aren't reproducing. But what worries me is the younger generations, where we could be seeing, like you say, birth defects, or at least changes in children where they have certain defects. Maybe they're enhanced. Who knows? I mean, it could go any direction.
No, you're correct. But it is interesting to me, like where you watch where we have huge devastation and death in our history. And then you have the outcome of mediums and connections to death. What we're not talking about is the immunization that's have happened in between those two things, and the shifts and changes. And then we go back to what you say, normal living, and then we're hit again. And then we're given the medicine again. And then...
Yeah, if you take a look at the patterns of what everybody goes back to 1918, 1917. But I think we could go all the way back to 1968, 69. I mean, there was a huge pandemic going on then. And they had Woodstock and everything going on at that time. But then we saw the death of what we call the flower children, the death of the innocence, the death of the free love, the death of all of that. And it was because every time stuff like this happens, we tend to look at ourselves and say, what disciplines are we going to do ourselves? But now the disciplines are not about what we're going to do for ourselves. The disciplines are, this is what you're going to do. It's an authoritarian push, and we need to pay attention to the science. And what the science is a woke honorarium for things that may allow for unsavory behaviors. I mean, just because a scientist says that he's a scientist doesn't make him a great scientist, nor does it make him a scientist that does ethical behavior.
And P.S., it doesn't make him God. So
Right.
I think that's a lot of times. And so I think coming back to making your own choices, we are all that is one. We are all connected, absolutely. And I think we're seeing that more and more. But also standing in your own truth, standing in your own, making your own decisions, and allowing that to not make you angry, but make you strong. You don't have to get mean. You don't have to get angry. You just get to stand in what you believe in, because you are seeing a lot of people folding and bending. When you fold and bend on a belief, when you fold and bend on what you believe as an individual for your own rights,
Right.
There's also depression and sickness there too.
Yeah, and once again, we go back to Dr. Heldor. I mean, of course, in the times we're in now, it would be probably, I would say, not a coincidence that the spirit that came through on that Ouija board was a doctor.
No way.
And his name was Dr. Heldor, and that Dr. Heldor gave us the word from the dead, that this is what is happening. He is the doctor of the dead. He is the one standing there in the cemeteries, observing those who die of despair, those who die of disease, those who have died of all these things, looking back at experience. And that, every time this happens, there's a time of despair, a time of depression, a time of rebirth, a time of renaissance, and a time of war, which, of course, I was just curious about. Is there any indication that we are headed towards a war? Because, everybody senses it, everybody feels it. What does the dead tell you?
So one thing that I have been told, and it's been repetitive, is tanks in the streets. They have told me tanks in the streets over and over again. Tanks in the street, the first time was that we were going to be pushed into our homes. We were not going to be allowed out by force. The second time I saw it, thought that was really weird. Why am I seeing tanks in the street again? We had the activists in Portland and all that went on, and we actually had military in our streets.
Right.
Now that I'm seeing it again, to me, this means it worries me very much so for war, the way they're showing, the way they're explaining.
Well, and I kind of said, I mentioned on one of my shows that one of the reasons why we see barbed wire and fencing around the Capitol is because I think the leaders of this country literally see themselves as they're terrified, because I think they wonder if the people actually question if they're legitimate or not, and then whether or not they're being legit. And I don't think they are in a lot of ways. I don't think they're being transparent. Regardless of what you feel about what happened with Trump or anything else, it's the delegitimizing of all of our legacy systems, Wall Street, corporate America, all of it is a myth, and it's being ripped apart by people who are waking up and understanding that the only way to rise up against your masters is to expose them for the frauds that they are. And it doesn't matter what political party they're in, they're frauds.
And it was amazing because Dr. Heldor came in, communicated with us, not just about health, but emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ties into everything you just said.
Right.
He brought that information to us.
Yeah.
Don't just be healthy, guys, but be mentally strong.
Exactly.
Also.
It's just, like I said, just a weird experience with you and Dr. Heldor and what happened with that. It's just an amazing, like I said, milestone for the show, because that, like I say, we may have to revisit calling Dr. Heldor. Sarah Lemos with us right here on Channel Weird. Don't go away.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Nucifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com. So we're talking about the future, we're talking about the present, we're talking about the dead. talking about a lot of things with Sarah Lemos, our guest. So digging deep into, I guess we call the realms of the future, the realms of what's about to happen. You're saying tanks in the streets. That's what the dead were telling you. Now we're seeing tanks in the streets. We're seeing barbed wire. I guess, looking at the new year, I mean, everybody was saying 2020 was horrible. 2021 isn't any better. At least we don't see it being any better. And even though they're trying to put a fresh coat of paint on everything, it's not happening. What do you see for 2021?
I think what it is like, having a year like 2020, the depression, the anxiety, the suppression, there's not just, like we said, the illness, but there's the mental illness of what's occurred. And you do see that fresh paint. I love the way you just explained that, because everywhere you look is like, well, it's okay. 2020's over now, and here we go. I honestly do see the middle of 2021 being very much better. Like we shift, we change, we start to flourish. But the reality is we're still kicking mud out of our spokes. And literally that's energy. So it's when there's a bunch of negative energy, there's illness, there's sickness, it sticks to things. And so a lot of people are just like, well, it's a new year, so here we go. And it's like, well, we're also still dealing energetically with what just happened. That's why when you take Tylenol, it takes a while to kick in.
Right. I mean, the thing that bothers me is that you have all these people now that have identity politics in their lives, and they certainly had Donald Trump taking rent in their heads, and they continue to do it. I mean, even though that we have a new president, we have a new, we could have a new outlook. The new outlook doesn't exist. There are people still holding on to Trump. They're still holding on. The impeachment's coming up, and it's just going to sow more seeds of anger and hate and resentment, and it's not doing us any good at all. And I think the minute that we can just kind of say, okay, what's done is done. We accept what's going on here. Let's give it a chance. But all of the things that are going on, all of the picks of the cabinet, all of these things that are happening are not improving anything. And I think people need to wise up to that. I think that if whatever you may think about Trump, it's not any better. What we did with the vote and everything, not any better. And it's not because of politics. It's because we still have politicians that accept money from dirty, horrible things. That's drug trafficking, human trafficking, pedophilia. You go down the list of all the horrible things that they're making money on, and they're putting that money. Everybody's saying, well, what about the banks? What about this? No, what about the drug cartels? What about all these other groups that are funding these bastards? I'll just put it bluntly. And they continue to gaslight us. And I think that's the problem. If we can get rid of the gaslighting, get rid of the cancel culture, cancel the cancel culture, look at our history and learn from it, I think that we'll be a lot better off. But no, we continually have to pick at the scab and allow the blood to flow. We're not healing, and we never will heal because people have so many things that shouldn't affect their lives, but it does.
And it continues to. And so then when they participate in that behavior or action, or, they're scrolling and getting that anger, it's like, that's a flavor. You're flavoring the world. And then you go out and you get in your car and you get mad. And then you're mad at somebody for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or put it on backwards or upside down. Yeah. In that flow that was created in 2020, and that energetic flow is a river. Okay. And that river is getting more rain in it, like Clyde's explaining. This rain is pouring, same issues, same problems, same rivers. So what I've been telling a lot of my clientele is get out of the water. You're submerged, you're wet, dry off, shake it off. Realize that it starts with you. Right. Change and shift things in your belief systems and what you want to, and start a new river, man.
Well, that's what that song Auld Lang Syne's about. Every year we sing, for old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind. That means everything from the last year should be forgot and be never brought to mind. And let's do something new.
Absolutely.
That's why that song's written. It's the idea, do something new. Leave behind all the hate and the anger and the frustration, but it festers. And it festers because we have something called the media that continues to push it. They want people to be angry because only adversarial journalism and adversarial reporting is the only thing that sells. And, people say, well, you probably do it too. Well, no, I'm not adversarial, but I do want to bring up things that you need to be aware of. It's called warning radio. It's called warning TV. That's what psychics do. That's what predictors of the weather do.
Yes.
They look ahead and they say, look, The clouds are forming. This is how you deal with the storm. But a lot of people don't want to hear a storm's coming. They want to think that everything's going to be beneficial and cool, and they put a new fresh coat of paint on everything. They try to spray Lysol on a turd, and it still smells like a turd.
Because you're in the same river. You have to get out of the river, dry off, and go find a new river. Don't just jump back in. Don't just try to swallow it in a different way. Don't try to make the perfume smell something it doesn't. Absolutely.
Right. I think that the more that we educate ourselves, the more we look at history, the more we understand the future. And, otherwise we're going to be going in this Mobius strip that continues and continues. It's like that Groundhog Day situation, that movie. So you keep going over and over and over the same thing, expecting a different result. And if you continue to do that, they call that insanity.
That's what that is.
You're a psycho. If you continue to think that you're going to do one thing and expect a different result and it doesn't happen, how long does it take before you say, every time I do this, this happens? Then don't do it anymore. Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Like going to the doctor. Yeah, every time I move my arm, it hurts. The doc says, well, then don't move your arm.
Exactly.
I know it's kind of oversimplifying everything, but I think that, the more I look at social media, the more I look around me, I'm just saying, why do people hang on to these things? There's so much more to be had. And if they were to realize, and you're a perfect example of this, if they were to realize that there are people rooting for them on the other side.
Big time.
Not just people who have died, but people who have not been born yet.
That's correct.
That are on the other side hoping that you do something to make a difference so that when they come into this world, they come in without any worry or problem.
That's right. And that's one thing I tell people all the time is like, you're never alone. And people are like, well, I feel alone. I'm like, I'm sure you feel alone, but you have to realize heaven is 3 feet away and all your loved ones are 3 feet away. And that also means new souls that are saying, hey, by the way, do you mind? Knock your shit off. Let's get back to the the good stuff. Mm-hmm. But you can also feel that. And you can feel that energetically when people are like, wow, it's a really heavy week. Well, why do you think it's a heavy week? Mm-hmm. What are you feeling? What are you sensing? Your loved ones are trying to protect you on a heavy week. It feels heavy for a reason. Right. And then having weeks where I feel carefree and wonderful, it's because you're getting supports and love from the other sides that are sending you in a different direction.
We have a responsibility to the dead. We're always told everybody that's come before us have fought for things so that we can have them. We have a responsibility to the dead, and we have a responsibility to progeny. And I think people need to understand that. We need to go back and we need to remember those who worked hard to give us what we have now and not take that for granted.
Ever.
Right. And then we look at progeny. We say, okay, so what is our progeny? They always say for ourselves and our posterity, when you're talking about the Constitution, saying that, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. The posterity, for me, is very important because I believe in family. Family does not limit to who is living. Family is also who has died. Family is also who you're planning on bringing into this world or who you are teaching now in this world of turmoil.
Absolutely. And our ancestors, not be it just loved ones, but be that karmatic energy that is, we are either cleaning up the mess or we are choosing to make it a brighter future. And that is a decision we make in every single moment. Mm-hmm. Be it we have a heart beating in our chest or we don't. It's still that lineage of family and ancestors. I completely agree with you, Clyde.
When they made the decision to lock everything down, when they made the decision to restrict us, when they made those decisions, I don't think they really thought of the trauma that would be carried on for generations. And we're looking at long time. They did studies to show that people who are the progeny of Auschwitz survivors or concentration camp survivors, they still carry that trauma 70 years later. And you can imagine the trauma that this has brought on all of us and how it's going to be handed down for generations. Eventually, it'll be breeded out and we won't remember it. Like 9/11. I mean, 9/11 was something that, happened, and then the generations, they don't know it or not, but they feel the trauma. They're born into it, and they don't understand that there was a life before then. And they look back, and I remember my stepson was watching Stranger Things with me, and he said, did they really let you ride bikes and stay out late until 10 o'clock at night when you were a kid?
Until those lights came on,
they let us do whatever we wanted because we felt safer then. Mm-hmm. He says, man, that's so weird. And, because kids, they don't relate to that. They don't relate to how when we were kids, our parents trusted us to be out with our friends alone and all this, and that will not happen anymore because it's all effective of trauma that has happened throughout the ages, and we take for granted that we were a certain way when we were kids. But kids today, they're a lot more alert than you think they are, and they're a lot more aware of what's going on here. And that's why it's important that we teach them and understand those who fought before them, that we love them now, and that we're hoping that they take that love and they bring it to their kids.
And continue it forward.
There is a responsibility.
There
and
is.
I think people need to understand that responsibility should be carried out immediately.
I agree.
Immediately. So, Sarah, thank you for your good work. Looking forward to seeing you on other shows, obviously. I mean, from the Osbournes to wherever else you're going to end up. So that's awesome. Sarah Lemos, and we're going to do that Calling Dr. Heldor show. We got to do it, I'm sure. Thank you guys for watching Channel Zero. If you're watching live now, remember we're going to be doing a Ask Me Anything on aftermath.media. And we're going to be re-airing, of course, around 7 tonight, and we air again, whenever it shows up. But thank you for supporting us on the live show, and we'll see you soon.